what would you be prepared to do as an individual? And we asked a number of questions. The first one, would you volunteer your time to do something about this? Would you be very likely or fairly likely to do that? And people who were getting quite negative stereotypes from some European nations, Europeans saying Americans are selfish, actually say, actually I'd give my time. And not only would I give my time, but I'd be more likely to do so, or as likely to do so as a lot of other countries. The last thing, where are the populations where there's biggest rift, either people having a negative perception about a country or not seeking close relations? This is what this is about. What we looked for was differences by gender, education, income. What we found was very little differences. What we looked for was differences by age, and we found some difference. Older people slightly more keen to want closer links than younger people. And indeed, this network is working with younger people who are perhaps more sceptical and holding back a bit. We then looked at religion, and this is European views cut by religion. What we found was that Christians were least negative on the whole about the US's influence in the world today. And people with no religion, people who have Muslim religion, were more negative. In our sample, you remember Turkey was in our sample. Most people in Turkey classify themselves as Muslim. If we take Turkey out, it makes very little difference, actually. Where do these perceptions come from? I don't know, and I wouldn't like to say it's a chicken or an egg situation here, but what we know is there's a set of negative stereotypes. What we know is we don't think those stereotypes are right. Americans are just as likely as Europeans to do something about it. What we find then, this is a question just on US respondents, what media do they trust the most online? And what we find is those who trust Fox News most online are least likely to have a negative view of their own country, of the US. Those who trust the LA Times, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, etc. are most likely. In fact, they're more likely than not to have a negative view of the US. And the same people are 7 times less likely to have a negative view of the EU. And the same people are almost 3 times more likely to have a negative view of the EU. So there's some kind of link. So particular types of people, their religion, their age, their sex, and their media consumption. What about in general? We asked them as well, why don't you want close relations? For those who didn't want close relations, what they said was, this is people in the US, so why do we not want close relations? Europeans are too liberal, socialist, or just too different in some way, or we've got nothing in common. Some people, Britain was in here a lot, relationship is close enough. Sorry, no, this is US. Relationship is close enough already. But what we see here is these are perceived differences. These guys, we think they are too different. We think they're too different. These are perceived differences. What the data doesn't confirm for us is these differences, and what we don't believe is that people are fundamentally so different across the Atlantic. It's cut again by Germany. So Germany, why do the people who not want close relations with the States, why do they not want it? Okay, foreign policy. The network's not going to do much about that. Let's be honest, not in the short term anyway. But what the network has got good food to go at is some of these perceived differences. Because we ask Germans and we ask Americans what they care about, what they're prepared to do about what they care about, and it's very similar. We think US culture is too different. We think the characteristics are too different. We think we've got nothing in common. We don't want their culture changing our culture. UK, a larger sample for the UK, again, the perceptions of difference, we've got nothing in common. They're important. The UK, as I said before, a lot of people already felt very close to the US, and so the number one reason in the UK was we already feel very close to the US. But again, these things are important, these perceptions of the difference, which we don't, as a group, believe in being so big, are important. So let's cut there.
I think really anecdote, maybe instinct tells us that that kind of attitude is on the increase, very gradually, incrementally. It's not a great surge. And that it would be better for Europe, for the USA, for the world, if the trend was reversed. Which is why we are seeking to bring together a substantial number of articulate young people with potential to see if that's how they feel, and if they do, whether they are willing to do what they can by networking and associated activities to put it into reverse.